Hello, everyone, and welcome to another riveting edition of Hardcore Sports Talk. I'm Tommy Dreamer, along with Orlando, Captain Controversy.
I have enough controversy going on in the sports world to last me. The first thing you asked me was about Kaepernick. The first thing.
Okay, we'll get to Kaepernick. It's the best time to be a sports fan. We got the playoffs of baseball starting. Every game is a must-see. We got the NFL starting. People have done all their fantasy drafts. We have a lot of exciting things to talk about.
I have to admit that I was wrong.
Shocking. And I'm probably going to say, we talked about this, we argued about this. And we're also going to talk, my good friend, about UFC. And we got some interesting to talk about. Let's go right off the bat. Let's start football. I know you're not a fantasy guy, and you should be, because I would whoop your butt in fantasy.
You would, except I have something called a life.
Wow, hear that? The hottest growing industry financially, fantasy football, and he's mocking it already.
I never understood fantasy. As a sports freak, as a guy who loves statistics and a guy who loves watching individual players, I understand, but you have to root against your own interest, against your own team.
Yes, absolutely. There's no loyalty when it comes to fantasy, but that's okay. We'll talk real sports then. We'll talk it. We got the Jets.
How many Giants are on your team?
Oof, I have Eli as a backup. That's about it.
Is that your faith in the Giants this year?
I actually had to auto draft on 2 of my leagues. I'm in 5 leagues this year. I think I overshot it. It's not like baseball, where baseball is a full-time job. Football is not. But I'm in 5 leagues. A lot of buddies wanted me in leagues, and it's okay.
You're up to 3 days a week, though, in football. I mean, for years it was Sundays, then Sundays and Mondays. It's fantasy, I would imagine, has to be more involved now than it ever was.
Oh, yeah. You're always checking, and they did the thing now where they don't have the 4 classes of injuries.
Yeah.
Now they just have the 3 classes of injuries, and you're always checking, see if this guy's been upgraded. Who do I start? It will change your life, man. You will think a different way. You'll always be attached to this cell phone, even more so than we already are.
Yeah, back and forth, we're texting about this and that. I got to say, I am happy that finally the Giants-Cowboys game is on at 4 o'clock. For years, I would stay up. Last year, I took the day off of work because it was on Sunday night. I'm finally able to watch the Giants get demolished during the day, so I don't have to go to bed angry.
Ooh, I don't know if the Giants are going to get demolished in that first game. I always enjoy the Cowboys. I'm a Giants fan, too. I always enjoy the Giants-Cowboys, but, I think it's a different teams this year, and, without Tony Romo there, and shockingly, and you got to stick it to crazy Mr. Jerry Jones for leaving Tony Romo on his team. You never know when he come back. If that guy comes back, he doesn't get enough credit for how tough he is. Yes, he does get hurt a lot, but hey, it's pro football, and he's the target. And but when you got an owner still sticking by, I think you may have some incriminating pictures of Jerry Jones, because he sticks by him at all times. But kudos to him for doing it.
Jerry Jones is hands down the worst owner in all of sports. Worse than the Wilpons, the most hands-on owner, which is why the Cowboys have been in the position they've been in. You can't be the GM and the owner. It's a conflict of interest. I've been a diehard Giants fan my whole life. I couldn't tell you what Wellington Mara looked like. I couldn't tell you what John Mara looks like. I couldn't tell you anything about the owners of the Giants. Jerry Jones, I could make a macaroni diagram of him. I've seen him
Jerry.
so much.
I like it. That was a Seinfeld episode.
That's the biggest problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, you own the team. You could do whatever you want. I come from a company where the crazy owner would micromanage a lot of stuff. You got to sometimes trust your individuals that are helping you with your team. He also stuck by Garrett. Don't know if he's a yes man. A lot of those guys do like yes men. That's why some people don't. But hey, we live in New York. We came from the era of George Steinbrenner, who built a dynasty doing exactly that, by sticking his nose where it belong. And if you think about what happened with him when he got suspended from the Yankees,
is when the Yankees rose.
Yes, and Gene Michael was the one who brought all that.
Why Jerry Jones can't follow this model? I mean, honestly, as a Giants fan, Jerry, by all means, continue to stick your nose in the Cowboys business. Continue to sabotage them night in and night out. The only reason why I'm skeptical of this game with the Giants is that they are notoriously horrible in the first game, and they are notoriously horrible in prime time. It's better that they're at the 4 o'clock, the 4:15 game because of this situation. But even so, the Giants, they don't do well out of the gate.
Okay. Well, I get you. I think the Giants will win this one. Now let's go for predictions. We'll call it early. Who do you think is going to get? Let's go championships. We'll go AFC championship.
Okay.
We'll go NFC championship.
I mean, you want to take it that far, it's kind of hard to tell. I do like Denver, even still, without Peyton.
Wow.
That defense is pretty much intact. I mean, a few changes here and there, but you see the best defenses winning championships, winning games. And Peyton Manning was not Peyton Manning from the Colts that won that championship last year.
He managed a great game.
Right.
He also did a phenomenal job on the celebrity roast of Rob Lowe, which is one of the greatest things. If you all need to go out there and watch it, it was great. And if you're an Ann Coulter fan, I feel bad for you. I was actually felt awkward watching that.
She had no business being there.
She probably had sex with Rob Lowe. Come on now. Haven't we all? I think I might have had sex with Rob Lowe at one point.
Yeah, you wrestlers know how to party.
With him, not actually. There's probably like a girl in between, but not. It was the 80s.
My brother, listen, what you do in your personal life, we have bathrooms now for both you guys.
I never even met him. Let's go back to football. Fans don't want to know about sexual exploits of fat, old professional wrestlers.
There's a whole website dedicated to that kind of thing.
All right. My predictions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The Patriots will go 1-3, and then Tom Brady will continue, and they will go 10-4. They will go all the way to the AFC Championship game against the Jets. Jets. Jets.
Do you think the Jets can take it?
And then the Jets will go to the Patriots will go to the Super Bowl, and they will face the winners of the Cardinals versus the Panthers. And I want to say it will be the Panthers and the Patriots in the Super Bowl, as well as the Patriots will win it all.
I do like Carolina.
I do too, but I think Tom Brady and Mr. Belichick, the most least enthusiastic man of all time as a coach, and talk about great coaching, he is one of them. He will have such a bone or a stick up his butt to shove it up the NFL, and I think they're going to kick butt. They always do.
Yeah, but Carolina, if they go all the way, Cam Newton has just as big a bone to pick for completely different reasons. I like Carolina this year to take it all the way.
Ron Rivera is an angry coach because he comes from the '85 Bears, and that's the team that likes to fight.
I actually have to apologize to a coach.
You can do that. Let's get an apology. We'll settle it down. We did our football predictions, and if you're a fantasy guy, I would look at the Vikings. I love the Bradford shade, and I would look at Marvin Jones on Detroit as your fantasy sleepers. Coming up, we will talk. We're going to talk baseball. He's got an apology. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about, but stay tuned because it's coming up next. Welcome back to Hardcore Sports Talk. He has an apology, folks. We should mark this date down. He's going to apologize to something. We have no format on this show. We just kind of come in. I'm usually late because I sat in traffic, and then we buzz what we're going to talk about. The hot topics of today. Our producer, Don, tells me a lot of good stuff that's happening in the world, too, or a lot of bad stuff.
He's more informative than both of us. I don't know why he's not doing this.
Yes, because he is a fountain of information, not misinformation, as Gorilla Monsoon used to say. So we got an apology. Let's mark this down. I don't know who he's going to apologize to, but it has something to do with professional baseball. MLB, who are you apologizing to?
I honestly thought just a couple of weeks ago that the Mets were dead in the water. And you and I have gone at it many times about Terry Collins. Do not think he's a great in-game manager still, but Terry Collins single-handedly, I think, has kept this team in it despite all the injuries. Losing Neil Walker, and they continue to win. They have a chance to sweep the Reds right now as we speak. Terry Collins has done an excellent job keeping this team together through peril, and I got to apologize. Terry Collins, you're doing a great job.
Yes, he is. I cannot believe it. When I was driving here, I was thinking, what are we going to talk about? And I was going to call you out for Terry Collins doing everyone predicted the Mets are going to be better this year. They have been. That
I didn't. I told you from the beginning we can't be better with less parts.
Yeah.
Math.
I understand that, but everyone's like pitching. You and I both said trade Harvey. Harvey. They should have listened to us. Keep Murphy. Yes, they should have listened. But yes, they're still in the hunt, which I know that you still hate the Wilpons, and you will not say anything nice to them. But if you think about it business-wise, they got rid of a lot. They saved some money. And they're still in the hunt. They're about, one game outside of the wild card, 2 games outside of the wild card?
No, it's one.
With pure crap. They've had a million injuries, and yet they're still doing it. And that is because of management.
I am afraid that the Mets are going to get that far and then fall because they don't have enough pieces. You could talk all you want about the pitching. You heard it from the beginning. The thing is, you should have learned dating all the way back to Dwight Gooden. You can't keep resting your laurels on these guys that are unproven. 1 year in baseball is nothing. DeGrom, Syndergaard, all of these guys were phenomenal for 1 year. That is not a big enough sample size in baseball. It's that they have the term sophomore jinx for a reason. Yeah. The fact that people were prepared to watch every one of our players battle for the Cy Young is nonsense.
Yeah, well, Syndergaard is still pitching well. DeGrom, they're saying he's got some issues. We're looking at him. I don't even know half their rotation. I'm happy that 40-year-old, maybe 280-pound Bartolo Colon, the Tommy Dreamer of baseball, he is still out there performing like he should because age is just a number.
He is the most reliable starter on the team. I mean, last year he was great, but he would go out and until the All-Star break, it would be like every other game. You know Bartolo's going to go out and give you at least 6 solid innings now. This year he's been phenomenal, but to do it with the pieces they have with the Kelly Johnsons, with these bit players, it is a lot like last year. The late inning magic, it's happening. But I'm looking at this schedule. Right now with the Reds, all right, that's going to fall in their favor. Same thing with the Braves. But then they have to play the Nationals again. And this time, the Nationals might be fighting for a certain playoff berth. Then you got the Twins, not so bad. Then the Braves. But if it comes down to the Mets and a playoff spot in those last 4 games against the division rival Phillies, who have had a bone to pick with them since last year, I don't see it happening.
Oof. Mets fan 69 says he just had a heart attack because you said you apologized to Terry Collins. I'm shocked, too. Do you think Terry Collins, if they make the playoff, becomes manager of the year?
You know what? I wouldn't agree with it, but I would understand it. I would understand it. A lot of being a good manager is doing what's best with the pieces you have. I still think his on-field managing is baffling. I still think that some of his bullpen moves are atrocious. I think a lot of the reason why some of the pitchers are in the positions they're in is because of his overuse and over-reliance and reluctance to look at anything but righty-lefty matchups.
Yeah, but there's a lot of managers that go, Buck Showalter was, hey, I have Mariano Rivera, I'm putting him out there all the time.
Right.
And the Cardinals, I don't know his first name, the relief pitcher. Dude, that guy's there every single game. And just, I could see, hey, you're throwing 1 inning. They stick with their relievers. I just saw on another
Collins
TV show where they're
out,
like,
though.
is Familia the best Mets closer of all time? Absolutely not, because of those 2 blown saves. In my opinion,
Right.
He needs to redeem himself. I feel he's got to go with what he has. Reyes has been a horse for us. James Loney has had a few key hits. If they have Jay Bruce and Yoenis Cespedes get hot at the same time, they're going to score a lot of runs, and I think that's what the Mets need.
Well,
Do
you
you
don't
think
necessarily
they're going to make the
need
playoffs?
Walker.
Yeah, no, he's done. He's having back surgery. He's a quitter. He's having surgery.
But Bruce would take that place. Do I think they make the playoffs? No.
I don't think they make the playoffs either. And as a Mets fan, that really, really troubles me. I think we have the Nationals. I think we have the Cubs. I think that's going to go down to the championship between those two. I've said it all along. The Dodgers, the Giants, and those, I don't know how they do it, the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yep.
They will be in it, and I think it's the Cubs. We've talked about this last time. The Cubs are going all the way. The streak is going to end, and that has a lot to do with, again, coaching. Madden.
It has to do with coaching, and it has to do with Theo Epstein. It has to do with
good one.
I mean, come on. The Cubs built that team pretty much the same way that Epstein built the Red Sox. And they got close, and in 2003, the Red Sox were so close, and then in 2004, everything fit, and they pulled a couple of bold moves that other GMs wouldn't, like trading Nomar Garciaparra. I mean, you got to do those kinds of things sometimes, which is a mistake the Mets made when they should have gotten rid of David Wright when he was still healthy, and they could have gotten something for him.
As well as Matt Harvey, get rid of him. It would have been a hell of a trade. Everyone would have been so crazy if they got rid of those 2 guys, but they wouldn't have pulled the plug.
The time for Harvey being traded was last year because I think a lot of people were fed up with Boris. A lot of people were fed up with him being pulled out early. And then the last game of the World Series with him demanding to go back out there. And I understand why. But listen, when you're going to make those
We've talked about that forever. Let it go. If he would have pulled him out, he would have been if they would have pulled him out and they would have lost, if they would have pulled him out and he would have won, he would have been the most hated man of all. It would have probably cost him his job.
It doesn't matter. You don't let your player decide for you. That was the problem. Whatever Colin's decision was, that's what you stick by. However, before I was rudely interrupted, my point is that I think a lot of people felt because Harvey failed after he was so brave and so full of himself with that demand to go back out there, it would have been okay if you traded him then. I think enough people would have been like, nah, you know what, goodbye.
If they would have gotten a great piece for him, other players for him, yes, it would have definitely helped. And if they would have been able to kept Daniel Murphy. I think Daniel Murphy also wins the MVP.
There's nobody else you can give it to.
Chris Bryant.
No.
Jose Altuve.
No, I'm sorry. What Dan Murphy did, getting traded to another team.
Stop banging.
And then going on to have that season that he does. I mean, come on, Tommy. As great as Chris Bryant is for the Cubs, I honestly feel that taking Dan Murphy away from the Nationals would sink the team.
And I think, talk about sinking a team, I think he's going to be a defining force to really, he's hungry to stick it up the Mets. But what about American League? Who do you got?
I do like Toronto.
I think it's going to be Toronto, Baltimore, and Red Sox all in the wild card. Cleveland and Texas. And I think it's going to be Cleveland versus the Cubs in the Francona versus Epstein battle. And it'll be a hell of a World Series.
I mean, I honestly do like what the Red Sox have done. And maybe a year away. I think they're close. They're just not there yet.
I think they need one other pitcher.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, you came in, you asked me immediately what I thought about Kaepernick, and then you're like, all right, we'll talk about it, but we have to dance around it.
It's a very, very touchy issue. We'll take a break. We'll get a sip of water. We'll settle things down, and then we're going to get to Colin Kaepernick and his very, very controversial decision. Welcome to Hardcore Sports Talk. We have settled things down. We're going to talk about a very, very serious issue. We'll talk about Colin Kaepernick and his stand not to actually stand for the national anthem. We both have opinions on it. My biggest problem with this is that it always turns to race.
Yep. And
it turns into racism, and it turns to black versus white, and I don't feel it's about that. I feel it's his stance, but we have to be very, very careful in today's society what you say, what you tweet, all that stuff. The fact that it's 2016 and racism still exists, the fact that people will judge other people on their race, their sexuality, whatever, the fact that it still happens is horrible for our society. You have one stance, I have another stance. One thing, to me, it should never be about black and white. All lives matter. And yes, there are racist police officers, there are racist people. It's not about that. It should be trying to better your society. And when it happened, everyone was like, it's one of those hot push button topics. Everyone's throwing their opinions in it without really getting the facts. To me, I think as a United States citizen, as someone where people will die for that flag, it was disrespectful. And I think there was other ways to go about a protest for doing that. Do I think he should be banned from the NFL? No. And then the crazier part, his jersey became the number one selling jersey. So
by design.
Yep. I don't think, it's not like he gets money from that. That goes to the players union. Hang on. I will make my point.
All right.
This should not be black and white. I'm not looking at it as in black and white. So many people do. I feel he made a stand. He could have made the stand a different way, but the fact that people die for our flag and defend his right to protest, or I've had the pleasure of sharing a locker room with Kurt Angle, who broke his neck and for representing the United States, and I have seen him with a torn groin and he could barely stand, and they play the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance and he gets up. He's a proud person for what he has done and what he's accomplished. I'm friends with another wrestler, Sarge Melendez, who lost his leg being over there in the war. And he's a proud person who served in the military. So, with that being said, yes, you have that right. I think you should have went about it another way, but always think about the other person and how you could have done it in a different situation. Again, please understand this is not black versus white. There are people who of all color and creed have died to defend your honor of doing that. So think about that next time you want to make a stand like that.
Have you seen the Twitter revolution? You're the Twitter guy. You've seen the soldiers for Kaepernick, soldiers of all races standing up, saying that he has the right to do that. Here is my problem with this whole Colin Kaepernick thing. It's been over a week. Everybody is still talking about it. Everybody is still outraged about it. Everybody is still engaging. It's all over Facebook. It's still one of the hottest trending topics. You have rapists that have done 3 months in jail. You have wife beaters in sports. You have child abusers in sports. Never the outrage that this is. You could say that he's disrespectful and that his opinion, I happen to agree with you that it is, but never, ever is it illegal to be disrespectful. The way anyone should approach this is, Colin Kaepernick will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. What a jerk. Move on. That's it. But people get this false sense of patriotism by being angry about it. You get the guys that make the videos burning the Kaepernick jerseys while holding their heart and playing the national anthem behind them, and people commenting on it, and the guy himself saying what a great patriot he is, and getting all of these accolades. Oh, you're a patriot for burning a Kaepernick jersey. You know what makes a great patriot? People have this idea in their head that if they're mad at Colin Kaepernick, they'd be a great patriot. Going to a soup kitchen and volunteering your time for these fallen soldiers, these soldiers that have fallen on hard times, that's being a patriot. Donating your time to a VA hospital, that's being a patriot. These are patriotic things. What Colin Kaepernick does on the football field doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect anyone else. It doesn't even affect some of these people that claim that they're so affected by it. It should be a non-issue, but it's not, because it's something that everybody can get behind and divide and make teams. I'm on this team, you're on that team. It should not be an issue anymore because there are bigger things to worry about.
I agree with that, and it is his right, but I understand now he has gone about different ways of standing for his cause. Correct?
He's been donating some of the money from the jersey sales to different charities and stuff. He's been taking the knee instead of just sitting. Again, all of this. Do I think Colin Kaepernick should stand for the national anthem? Yes. Does he have the right not to? Yes. He's not doing anything illegal, and you have the right to think he's a jerk, but how much further are you going to take this?
No, I agree. I don't think he's a jerk. I think we all have our opinion because of this thing. We all have our opinion. We could go out there and say things. Dude, I have posted things. You receive hate. You receive praise. You receive horrible things. I receive a ton of spam too. Please, Twitter, fix that because I hate it. Because I also feel like my spam girls are cheating on me. But you don't need to do that. And if you are if you have someone who served in the military or someone who lost their life defending our country or defending that to me, that's the only biggest issues. But yes, I agree where people are doing, burning jerseys, all that stuff. The same people who burned LeBron James' jersey
right
when he left are the same people who were cheering for, hey, you brought a championship to this city. I agree with that. My stance is there was a better way to go about it. I like what you're doing now. I do not feel, because I also feel what you just said, you are creating a different type of void. You are letting us choose sides instead of trying to fix the problem. I do like donating. I do like your suggestion. I would like to have him donate his awesome hair to maybe a cancer society, the Locks of Love, because that hair is awesome. I'm jealous of anyone who has hair just like you. So
you got 7-8 years on me, and you still have a lot more hair than I do.
I'm hanging on to every thread that I can. But again, should never be about black and white. Should be about our society in a whole and trying to make it a better place to live, not for us, but for our children and our children's children.
It's not his opposition. I mean, it's not his supporters that are thrusting this into the spotlight. The angriest, the loudest are the ones that get his done. It's his opposition that's actually fueling these jersey sales. It's his naysayers that are actually keeping him in the spotlight. You could be positive about anything that lasts 5 seconds, be negative that lasts forever. I don't necessarily agree. I don't believe Kaepernick's motives for this. I feel like he knew he was getting cut. He knew his job was on the line. So this comes up, and now it's you're not going to touch it. You're not going to touch this lightning rod. You know, I think
you can't get rid of him if you're on the team, because then you'll be viewed it's a racist move.
Not just racist, you're infringing upon his First Amendment rights.
He's not even a starter.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's my personal belief.
I don't think he did that to save his job.
Well, where was all of this anger? I mean,
times we've had some pretty crappy times as an American society the last
and
few
we
months.
Always have. If you just read the papers and looked at things more than just what the tiny little media that we have, you know, there's other ways to get news.
Yes.
There's all kinds of stuff going on. That's my belief. That I'm not saying that he doesn't believe this stuff. I'm not saying that, you know, he doesn't have points. I'm just saying that, one, yes, I don't agree that he should be sitting. I think he should be standing, but I don't like it's not that big when you look at other things going on. And like, he's a guy sitting down.
It also doesn't help. It doesn't help the cause for me, because it brings anger against it. And if people are racist and prejudiced, they're going to say, hey, look what that person did, and they're going to put him in a specific class, which is wrong.
Yes, he succeeded. He succeeded in keeping himself relevant. This whole idea of the jersey sales spiking and him being the number one selling jersey in the NFL, do you think it's because of his supporters, or do you think it's because of his detractors? It's the detractors.
Yep.
They're the ones keeping him in this thing.
I agree. It's I hope no one is offended with anything. I think we took the most politically correct with giving our opinions, and again, this does not have anything to do for me or for you with race. It really isn't.
All right. Well, look.
I don't like when people say every type of cop is a bad police officer, because they don't. I have friends who are police officers. I have friends who have lost their lives or lost a loved one fighting for our country. It should never be about black and white in my crazy world.
Not every professional wrestling legend is a jerk.
Exactly. We're just still crazy.
Listen, we have a very special guest coming up on the show today. Our first ever special guest as we talk a little UFC.
Poor Don, our producer. He's usually our special guest. Now we got a UFC guy coming in on the heels of a professional wrestler making his UFC debut. We're coming up right after this.
We're back on Hardcore Sports Talk. I'm Orlando with my co-host and buddy, Tommy Dreamer, the legendary Tommy Dreamer. And we have a very special guest today on the eve of UFC 203. CM Punk, the professional wrestler, making his UFC debut, hoping to capitalize on the whole Brock Lesnar thing. We have former Ultimate Fighting contestant Chris Cope, spent many years in the UFC, retired now. I'm jealous of both of you guys. You're both around my age, and you both have already had careers, and you're retired. But Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
The big question here, and it's funny, I want to have a professional UFC fighter and a professional wrestler on. What do you think of these wrestlers in UFC?
You know, there's been a lot of convergence back and forth with that, but I mean, Brock was able to get it done. Other guys like Bobby Lashley, not so much. CM Punk, he's not really talking up a big game. He's just like, hey, listen, this is something I want to do. I want to go for it. And he's been every time he does an interview, it's hard not to like the guy. But then again, it's kind of like, hey, I want to play baseball for the Yankees. I've never played baseball, but I'm just going to go start the game. You know what I mean? That's basically, CM Punk's got no college wrestling. He's got no Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, no boxing, no background whatsoever. He's gone to Duke Roufus' camp, trained there for about 5 months, and then he's in his first UFC fight where guys spend their whole lives trying to get there, and he's just been given to him because of his notoriety. That's kind of, the bad part about it.
For guys who have definitely paid their dues, absolutely. I think it was a brilliant move by the UFC for hiring him, because he left WWE under such, bad terms, and for a business move, great. Think about it. He's already been 2 years in, and we're finally getting to see him fight. I actually hired CM Punk into WWE. I think he's one of those guys that can excel at anything he does. You are 100% correct, where he has no amateur background whatsoever. He's loved professional wrestling, but he always has loved mixed martial arts, and for the fact that he was able to do that, yes, I would love to pitch for the New York Yankees, or even have one at bat. Can't wait. I'm throwing out the first pitch for the Long Island Ducks. I'm all excited about that. But with Punk, I think it helps. I was offended with Conor McGregor when he made his comments about, hey, a lot of professional wrestlers couldn't lace his boots. I totally disagree with that. There's so many professional wrestlers that do have amateur backgrounds and do, we Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist. There's 2 guys who are on the Olympics. They're a tag team in WWE right now, Gable and something. I forgot their names.
Yeah, the new guys. I don't follow it like I used to. I know who you're talking about.
I think Dolph Ziggler, who was the number 1 winningest wrestler in Kent State history, amateur wrestling, I think he actually could fight Conor McGregor. And if you ever wanted to, if I was the UFC brass, I would hire and have Shane McMahon fight Conor McGregor in a heartbeat. 2 crazy Irishmen. And I think that would be, and as you know, it's the showmanship, yes, has a big part, but it's putting asses in seats and pay-per-view buys. And I think Shane versus McGregor would be, Shane's an animal. I have fought with him. I have trained with him. He makes me tap, and I'm a hard person to actually tap, and he makes me tap. We've had Fight Club a lot. So your opinion, do you think CM Punk will win?
I don't know. It's funny because this guy that he's actually fighting, this guy legitimately made it to the UFC.
Mickey Gall.
It's kind of Mickey Gall. Like, this is kind of like a lose-lose for him. If he beats CM Punk, he basically beat a guy that has no background. If he loses CM Punk, that's like you lost to a guy with no background. Right. But it's gonna put him on blast. The thing about professional wrestling, which is not really, everybody kind of knows about it. They put their bodies to a war zone. I talked to Brock when I was on the show, and he's like, I'm like, well, what's injury-wise? What did you get more injuries in, fighting or wrestling? He's like, wrestling by far. We're doing so many shows. You do so many falls. You're taking such abuse and beatings that your skin almost becomes like leather. You get a lot more durable.
True. Well, you're talking to a guy who's made a living putting himself through tables and falling on thumbtacks and all kinds of stuff. But you have stories of like guys like Bill Kazmaier, the strongest guy in the world, who was pretty much driven out of wrestling because the wrestlers wouldn't accept an outsider. Do you feel like in both your sports it is protected where there is going to be a target on CM Punk's back because, like in wrestling, you just don't want to accept an outsider coming into your sport?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you've worked so hard to get there, and just because you've had notoriety in one sport makes it a lot easier for them to convert.
Right.
I mean, it'd be like me all of a sudden competing in something else, but then since I have notoriety in fighting, then I just get kicked to the front of the line. You got to go through your, here's the thing. Brock had a fight at least before he went in there in the UFC.
Right.
And he went in there and he was a bulldozer and he got to be basically the undisputed champion. Bobby Lashley, they haven't allowed him in the UFC. There's a lot of these guys that have tried, but they haven't let him in. But CM Punk, what a lot of people don't realize too, he's been having relations with UFC fighters for a while because rumor has it he wrote scripts to a lot of these guys. Like Chael Sonnen, when he was talking smack with Anderson Silva, CM Punk was the one that was telling him what to say. He was giving him scripts and writing scripts for a lot of these guys to build the fights. A lot of them got paid because of it, too.
Nice.
So,
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and then not to mention Shane, you're talking about Shane McMahon. He was kind of the wizard behind the curtain for a lot of years on restructuring the UFC and building it. And, rumor has it he does have some ownership in it as well, too. I think the biggest thing is with CM Punk is if he was coming out there saying he's going to destroy everybody, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, then you would really want to hate the guy. But the thing is, when he does these interviews, he's just completely, it's almost like a kid with a Make-A-Wish program. And I'm not saying bad things about Make-A-Wish program, but
right.
The thing is, it's almost like, hey, I want to fight in the UFC. They're going to let me fight. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, great, here you go, CM Punk. Yeah, you get your fight. And it's going to get pay-per-view buys.
Yes,
People are going to watch it.
Do you think more WWE fans are going to buy this just to see Punk?
I think, I don't mean to, for it's crossover. Just like with Brock Lesnar. When Brock Lesnar went over there, he had his fight. And then guess what? SummerSlam was right over there. I think it's a win-win for both. You're going to have wrestling fans say, oh, and your diehard wrestling fan, they all know that the outcomes are predetermined. Right. So, but they want to see, oh, you know what? Hey, these guys are tough. I have told and I've said this, I've told my best friend, hit me as hard as you can. I've told, and I'm not going to block it. I've told guys, hey, bust open my eye because I want to bleed, or hit me with a steel chair. Break a steel chair over my head. Let's see if we could do it. Again, before the era of concussions, but it is about putting people in seats.
Right.
It's going to do buy rates. And for me, it's a 38-year-old man, yes, trying to live his dream. He is training very, very hard.
Punk is 38?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
I think that's another thing where a lot of people don't realize that, hey, he's an older guy. He has gotten himself in phenomenal shape. I've watched, the UFC documentaries for that Fox has produced. It's a fabulous story. For me, he just needs one fight. If he needs one fight, win or lose, and I think the greatest thing that UFC can do is hand him this. Because then it's like, hey, guess what? You have had at least one fight, and he can deliver. He's one of those guys who does anything that he touches turns to gold, kind of like The Rock or old school Will Smith, that, anything that they do becomes big. Punk can then give credibility to himself as a broadcaster, and I think he'd be a great broadcaster as well for UFC.
Well, I tell you what, one of my dream matches is to just go out with these two guys and have somebody pick on me, because I would be more protected in my life than I ever have.
We would just probably walk away and just let you fend for yourself.
You probably would.
Just to see what would happen. So
let the DJ fight.
Do you think Punk will win or lose? What's your call?
It's hit or miss. I mean, I'm personally, if it was completely fair, yeah, Punk would lose, in a heartbeat. But I almost think like if they say let's build this, they might pay Mickey Call to take a dive.
Whoa! We're saying this could be predetermined. Don't get me involved in this conversation. What the?
You can't talk to a wrestler about predetermined, bro.
If they want to build it, the thing is that. I mean, I've watched CM Punk hitting mids and grappling over there. Duke Rufus is like, you watch the video and you're like, it's worse than an amateur. Like, you're just like, my God. But
you don't think that his work is up to par for UFC?
No, not even close.
Okay,
not even close. I mean, the thing is that he's only had 5 months to prepare. Like, you can only get someone so ready with no background whatsoever to be able to do that. He's got a puncher's chance, but then again, this is the entertainment business, right?
Right.
So the whole name of the game is to get people to watch it. And this isn't, other organizations have done this. Like, you take Pride, for example. They used to have Fedor Emelianenko fight guys that were 7'2", so it looked like a total freak show, and Fedor's like about 5'10".
Yeah.
Just so you saw, like, it made Fedor look that much more awesome, even though the 7'2" guy was basically like 1-30. It would just made it look like he could just kill giants. You know what I mean?
I know in Japan there was a UWFI, which was a fighting early 90s, and I had a professional wrestler friend of mine, little Guido, who he was told, you're going to go fight in Japan, for real, trained for 5 months. He gets there, and then they told him when you have to get into a different mindset if you're going to fight somebody for real. Maybe an hour before his fight, pulled him into the room, and there's his opponent, and they said, you're losing in the second round to an armbar. And he was just like, what? And then he was like, but he came from professional wrestling, and he was just like, okay, because they're paying him the same.
Yeah.
Bam Bam Bigelow fought Chemo in Japan. And Japan was different, and Chemo, this is after he had lost the UFC, and Bam Bam got choked out in like 40 seconds. And then I remember talking to Bam, I was like, Scott, how did you not defend the honor of professional wrestling? I was like, 40 seconds, I said. And he's like, do you know how much I got paid to tap out? He goes, I got paid more for doing that than a year wrestling here. And I was like, because this is, when UFC was this whole barbaric, sport before it almost got banned. So, I'm happy to hear that a person from the UFC has actually said there is some showmanship involved, and maybe they may pay him to take a dive. Interesting. Well, I think I want to join your MMA podcast thing, because I really want to know, because I fought Brock. I worked with Brock. I've worked with Bobby Lashley. I'm very interested in your opinion of Bobby Lashley. I may want to stick around your UFC thing, because I think Bobby Lashley has perfect form in all that he does. But again, I don't do what you have done. You don't do what I've done. But I'm fascinated when you said Bobby Lashley, because I have worked with Bobby Lashley, and I watch his fights. I'm like, how is he not with UFC?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You're more than welcome to stick around.
Oof.
We got to go. It's Hardcore Sports Talk. Chris,
I don't want to leave.
Thanks for joining.
Anytime, guys.
Thanks for being here, man. You have shocked my world. I love it.
We'll see you next week with Hardcore Sports Talk.